The bus just pulled up and you've got about 3 seconds.
I'm almost ready.
What could possibly take an 8-year-old so long to get ready for school? It's not like she has... Sarah, now!
I'm right here.
Here you go, Peanut. Wheat bread, no mustard. There's a big surprise for dessert.
You mean an apple?
Surprised? Now, I packed your warm pajamas and your flashlight, and don't talk back to Stephanie's mother, even if Stephanie does it.
I won't.
Have fun. You know how much Mommy loves you.
And I love Mommy back.
Now, go hug your dad.
Bye, Daddy. See you tomorrow.
Tomorrow? What happened to this afternoon?
Matt, I told you 3 times. She's going to a camp out at the Inmans tonight.
Oh. Well, have a good time, sweetie.
So I guess you've also probably forgotten that since Sarah's going to be gone, I thought it would be nice if we met at Peppino's for dinner tonight. Remember? Like a date night?
Oh, I can't tonight, honey. Tim got an extra ticket to the Cubs game at 7.
Cubs game?
Yeah.
And when did this come up?
Yesterday. His father-in-law got seats right behind the dugout.
Matt! I haven't seen you all week.
You've seen me?
Oh, sure. When you get home at 8:30, exhausted and smelling like Taco Bell.
Honey, I'm a vice president. You knew that was going to mean more hours.
So I have all day to look forward to a Friday night by myself.
Why don't you get out and meet some of the neighbors? They've been after you to do something since we moved in.
Yeah, church stuff, Matt. They've invited me to do church stuff.
Church stuff can be fun.
Really? Huh. Then why don't you head on over to the men's church-wide cookout? Yeah, that sounds like a lot more fun than a ball game. And I know you've never been. That's why they inconspicuously stuck one of these in our mailbox every Thursday since we moved here.
Now you're being a little overdramatic.
Why? Because I resent the fact that I'm stuck home again on a Friday night, and the best you're offering me is, what, high tea with the Jesus freak next door.
I've got to go. I'll be home late.
God calls Moses over and says, Moses, I want you to go, and I want you to free the people out of the land of gatos y perros.
Morning, Rachel.
Morning, Mrs. Kaminsky.
It's Nikki. Mrs. Kaminsky is my mother-in-law.
Yes?
Rachel, could you come in here, please?
Be right there.
Yes?
Do you know how this got on my keyboard?
I didn't see anybody come in here. What is it?
Apparently it's some kind of joke.
Pepinos. It's nice to know Jesus has good taste. You sure he's buying?
Look, if you're just covering for Les Hudson or Alex...
Les and Alex aren't in today. I swear, I don't know how this got in here.
Okay, thanks. No, all it says is you are invited to a dinner with Jesus Christ, Peppino's, 7 o'clock. Yeah, I'm scared to death that one of our religious fanatic neighbors snuck in here last night and left it. Mom, you don't know these people. They have been after us for every... Oh, wait a minute. Peppino's, 7 o'clock. This is Matt.
Peppino's was where I told him I wanted to have a date night, and 7 o'clock is when he was supposedly going to this ball game. That little... What? No. Things have been just about the same. Yeah. Well, maybe this is a sign that he's getting playful again. I just don't get the Jesus part. Maybe he's just making fun of the neighbors. I don't really care what the joke is, as long as we can sit down and have a nice evening together. Yeah. Oh, I just wish I had time to go home and change first. Oh well. Yeah. Okay, well, now that the mystery's solved, I really better get back to work. Okay. Give Kelly a hug for me. Alright, miss you too. Bye.
Good evening. May I help you?
No, I mean, yes, I'm supposed to meet someone.
And what is the name?
Kaminsky?
Ah, right this way, Mrs. Kaminsky. Here we are.
Nikki, hi. I'm Jesus.
Where's Matt?
Say by now he's probably sitting behind the dugout at Wrigley.
Enjoy your dinner.
Thanks for meeting me. I'm really glad you were freed up.
Excuse me, am I supposed to know you?
Good question. I guess the answer is yes.
I'm sorry, as far as I can remember, I've never met you.
That's true.
Okay, let's just start over. Your name is...
Jesus. My family called me Yeshua.
Your family. From...
Nazareth. Well, actually, I only grew up there. I wasn't born there.
No, that would have been in...
Bethlehem.
Okay. Look, this has all been very cute, but I've got better things to do than waste my time on some stupid joke. Just who are you anyway? Who put you up to this?
I know I'm not quite what you were expecting.
Did my neighbors set this up? Is this what that church does? Hire some actor to tell people he's Jesus? Is it some creative recruiting tool they use? Because I gotta tell you, pal, your costume is not exactly historically accurate.
I'm not an actor, and no, your neighbors didn't send me. If you'll just stay for dinner, I know it'll mean something to you.
Who wouldn't find dinner with Jesus meaningful? Just last week, I had breakfast with Napoleon, and it was a blast. Look, I gotta get home to my family. Thanks for the invitation.
Please stay. Come on, how many chances do you get to come to Peppino's anyway? If you just stay for dinner, I promise to tell you at the end who set it all up.
You know, it just so happens that I got dumped for a baseball game tonight. And I have been thinking about Peppino's manicotti all day. But if you try anything, I swear...
Have you selected the wine, sir?
I think I'll let my friend decide. Do you care for some wine?
You are buying, right?
Yes, I am.
Huh. Sure, then. I'll take a bottle of the 98 Brunello di Grada.
Obviously know your wines. I'll be right back.
Thank you, Carlo.
So, your family called you Yeshua.
Most of them. My brother James called me a few other things.
Can you turn this wine back into water?
No problem. My friend here has decided she would rather have another glass of water instead of this wine.
Certainly, sir.
Never mind. Very funny.
Thanks, Eduardo. Sorry to bother you.
You on a first-name basis with the entire waitstaff?
Yeah. So what are you thinking?
Thinking I'm a married woman who's crazy for not leaving when she had the chance.
I mean about your order.
Oh. I'm staying on the manicotti.
Think I'm going to try the salmon.
Because it's Friday?
Good one.
Ready to order?
Yes, I'd like the stuffed mushrooms, the Mediterranean salad, and the manicotti.
And I'd like the tomato and artichoke soup, the tortellini salad, and the salmon fillet.
Very good.
Beats the bread and wine, huh?
So, tell me about your family.
I thought you knew everything already.
Well, why don't you humor me? Where's your family from?
Oh, no. I'm much more interested in hearing about your family, Jesus. Why don't you tell me about Joseph and Mary?
All right. Well, growing up in Nazareth wasn't anything like growing up in Cincinnati, I can tell you that. We didn't get too many foot-long hot dogs at Riverfront Stadium. Joseph was a good father. He had a shop right next to the house, but he did things at a leisurely pace. I think the only time he ever sped up was when he was trying to finish a project before I could get my hands on it. I didn't realize at the time just how many of his pieces I used to mess up. Well, at 8 years old, I wasn't exactly what you would call a master carpenter.
You're good.
Some bread?
So how about Mary? I mean, wasn't it difficult having such a pious mom?
She was hardly pious. More like an outcast when I was young. Back then, being pregnant before the wedding wasn't exactly what you would call a
Kosher.
It wasn't the thing to do.
You know, from all the paintings I've seen of her, she's either nursing the baby Jesus or taking him down off the cross. Did she do anything in between?
I had a great mother. Faith kept her going. When I finally started preaching is when it really got hard for her. And seeing her son worshipped one day and then demonized the next, I think it was harder than she ever imagined it would be.
Look, you haven't told me anything that someone with a Bible and half an imagination couldn't make up. You're going to have to come up with something a little better than these sappy mom-and-pop stories.
To do what?
You know, one night on CNN, Larry King said that of all the historical figures, the one he would most like to interview is Jesus Christ. I gotta tell you, this routine with the retread Bible stories has been a little less than intriguing.
I don't think there's much I could actually say that would convince you that I'm Jesus.
Well, there's one true statement.
So how about we do this? How about you suspend your disbelief just for tonight, and we proceed as if I really am Jesus? Now, if you were sitting here with Jesus Christ, I know you would have some questions for him.
The other day, I passed a church, and the sign out front said, "No one comes to the Father except through me," signed Jesus. Now, did he actually say that? Because if he did, I think he's full of it.
The stuffed mushrooms? And your soup, sir.
Oh, you're not going to ask me to say the blessing, are you?
I usually like to say a word of thanks before meals. Do you mind?
No, not at all.
Father, thank you for always providing for us, whom you love.
That's it?
I'm sorry. Is there something else you wanted to say?
No, think that covered it. So what about that no one comes to the Father except through me business?
Why do you think I'm mistaken?
Well, because you've got all these people around the world that believe in different ways of worshiping God, and you're saying that only Jesus' way is the right one?
And your problem with that is?
A lot. I mean, who's to say that Jesus' way is any better than Muhammad's or Buddha's or the Hindus?
Do you think Hinduism is true?
I don't know. I have some friends back home who got into Hinduism, and it seemed to work for them.
I didn't ask if you thought it worked. I asked if you thought it was true.
It was true for them.
And before Copernicus, most people believed that the world was flat. That was false, but it worked for them. You know why that was?
I don't think it mattered much back then. Before Columbus, nobody traveled far enough for it to be a problem.
What would have happened if someone had tried to go to the moon?
They'd be in for a big surprise.
The point is, what people believed worked for them, even though it was false, but at some critical juncture it was bound to not work anymore.
So?
You're the one with the master's degree, you tell me.
In business law, not philosophy.
Well, you still had to think a little.
All right. What you're saying is that even if a belief system works for someone, if it's false, it will eventually break down.
And you don't want what you're placing your ultimate trust in to be wrong. You remember that class you took at UC, the one on world religions?
How did you know?
What did that class teach you about Hinduism, how it squares up with what's known about the universe?
If I remember correctly, Hinduism teaches that the universe is simply an extension of a universal force called
Brahman.
Brahman. Yes. The ultimate essence.
And God is the universe, and the universe is God.
Right, and that there is no one separate creator.
And how long has their universe existed?
According to the Hindus, always. The universe is eternal.
And how does that match up with what modern astronomers have discovered?
Not very well, I guess. I did read an article once that said all the evidence points to the universe having a definite starting point.
So if Hinduism is true, then how did the universe get here?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
All right. How about something a little closer to Christianity, like Islam? The Muslims claim to worship the God of the Bible, so who's to say that their version is wrong and Jesus is right?
Well, that would all depend on whether or not God actually spoke to Muhammad. It's a lot of weight to put on one man's teachings.
Well, you could say the same thing about Christianity. It all depends on whether or not God spoke to one guy.
No, the Bible has over 40 authors that span 1,500 years, all with the same consistent message.
But who's to say that God didn't speak to Muhammad?
Well, if he did, he got a few things wrong.
Like what?
Well, for starters, Muhammad wrote that I was never crucified, that God's angels rescued me and took me straight to heaven.
You mean Jesus.
That's what I said.
Maybe Muhammad was right.
No, he wasn't.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. You were there.
But you don't have to ask me. My crucifixion was historically documented by Christians and non-Christians. But that's not the only problem with Islam.
What else is there?
What's your deepest desire?
Not sure I want to get into that.
Well, let's talk in generalities. What do most people's hearts long for?
I don't know. A big screen TV. I suppose people's greatest desire is to be loved.
I don't mean to be too personal, Nikki. But in your experience, has another person ever completely fulfilled that need for love?
Matt's a good husband.
That's not what I'm asking.
No, I suppose no one's ever really fulfilled it completely.
That's because another person never can. Only God can. He created people that way. But the Muslims never had that hope. They can't have a personal relationship with Allah. He's just someone to worship and serve from far away, even in paradise. Now, why would God create mankind with this deep need to be loved and then never meet it?
Maybe the Muslims don't have all the answers, but I don't think anybody does.
No, they don't. They only think they do.
Well, if nobody has all the answers, then maybe Maybe God doesn't even exist. Maybe this world really is all there is. Have you ever considered that?
Well, then you're faced with explaining the design thing.
What, that there's no way that it could have happened by accident?
Do you know about the black hole theory?
Pretty much.
Do you know the odds calculated by the guy who came up with that theory? That some cosmic accident could create such an orderly universe?
No.
Take a guess.
I don't know. 1 in a billion.
Try 1 in 100 billion to the 123rd power. And that's just the universe itself. He wasn't even taking into account the design of biological life.
All right, so you've managed to poke a couple holes in these other religions. But you know, it seems to me every religion, Christianity included, they're just different roads to the same place. I mean, everyone is looking for God.
Really? Are you?
As I was saying, everyone is looking for God in their own way. That's what I liked about my friend's church back home. They embraced everybody's different beliefs and tried to help them on their path to God.
There's just one problem with that.
What?
There is no path to God. Want some tortellini?
So what did you mean, there's no path to God? Every religion claims to teach the way to God.
Well, there's a way to God. It just isn't a path. What I mean is this. A path is something that you travel by your own effort to reach a destination. But there's no way that you can work your way to God. That path just doesn't exist.
Wait a minute. That's what religion is all about, trying to get to God. How can you possibly say otherwise?
Did you ever get in trouble when you were a kid?
Are you changing the subject?
I'll get back to the other thing.
I don't think this place stays open long enough for me to tell you all the trouble I used to get into.
That bad, huh? Give me a highlight.
Well, one time when we were on vacation, I dumped a milkshake on my little sister's head.
What did your dad do?
Well, he pulled over, bent me over his knee, and gave me the worst spanking I ever had.
So your dad always handled the spankings, huh?
Yeah, Mom just yelled at us. But he didn't spank us very often.
Why not?
Well, it just wasn't his way of handling things, I guess. He was bigger on making us understand why what we had done was wrong and apologizing to the other person, especially if it was Mom.
So your dad had a lot in common with God.
How so?
Well, they both focused on restoring relationships. Your dad made you admit that you had hurt someone and then apologize. He wanted you to restore that relationship.
Guess I never thought of it that way.
And that's exactly how it is with God. He isn't interested in people performing well enough for him. They can't possibly do that anyway. God created people to have a relationship with him so they could enjoy his love.
So why don't they?
Because man has rejected God and severed the relationship. God's whole program, if you want to call it that, is all about putting it back together. Tell me this. When Sarah does something wrong, how many dishes does she have to wash before she can get up in your lap and get a hug again?
None.
Well, then how many A's will she have to make in school?
That's silly.
Why?
Because she doesn't have to do anything. She's my daughter.
Well, there you go.
So you're saying that we can't do anything to earn God's love?
A little more?
Sure.
Back to the Muslims who try to earn their way into paradise. Do you know how many daily prayers they had to perform just to be good enough?
No.
Neither do they. They're never sure if they've done enough praying or fasting or making pilgrimages or giving to the poor. Just ask them to tell you the same thing.
Really?
And the Hindus never know how many lifetimes it takes to successfully work out their karma.
But Christianity is no different. I mean, no one can ever really know if they've been good enough to make it into heaven.
Oh, they can know that for certain. The answer is no. They can't. No one is good enough to make it into heaven no matter how hard they try.
But you're saying that doing all the right things, like keeping the 10 Commandments and not cheating on your taxes, won't get you into heaven? Oh, sorry.
That's right. Keeping the 10 Commandments won't get you into heaven.
Then why do them?
Well, there's great profit in obeying God. It just won't get you into heaven. Man's rebellion against God is like a huge rip in the moral fabric of the universe, with God on one side and everybody else on the other. And there's no way you can get to the other side.
Why not?
Because only God is big enough to fix a tear. Who would you say is the best person in the world?
Excuse me?
Morally speaking, who's the best person you can think of?
Living or dead?
Either one.
Somebody like Mother Teresa, I guess.
All right. We'll say this is Mother Teresa. Now, who's the worst?
Gosh. Osama bin Laden, Jeffrey Dahmer, Hitler.
Pick one.
Okay, Hitler.
All right? That's Hitler. Now, where would you say that you fall into place on this scale?
Well, if I say with Mother Teresa, then I'll appear vain, but if I put myself with Hitler, then that's, well, forget it. How about here?
Sugar. Cute.
What do I win?
Nothing. But I am going to show you how you measure up in the eyes of God.
Great.
Now, for this to be totally accurate, we'd have to place these three objects on a road that ran all the way from New York to Los Angeles, with you, Mother Teresa, and Hitler in New York, and God's moral standard all the way in L.A.
Are you saying that to God, Mother Teresa and Hitler are essentially the same?
Oh, no. Hitler was horribly evil. Mother Teresa did many good things. What I'm saying is that Mother Teresa, for all her goodness, was no closer to bridging the gap to God than Hitler was. Both of them, based on their own merits, were still a long way from being with God.
So that's why you said that keeping the 10 Commandments won't get us into heaven.
Right, because no one could ever keep them well enough, because God's standard is perfection.
Boy, that's reassuring.
And you wouldn't want it any other way.
What's that supposed to mean?
Would you really want the universe to be run by someone who wasn't all about a perfect system of justice? A perfect brand of holiness?
Why not? Perfect holiness is the last thing I need to deal with.
So you would want a universe where crime goes unpunished, where someone who harms Sarah gets off scot-free, where someone like bin Laden isn't held accountable for 9/11?
Not everyone is as bad as bin Laden.
No, but everyone is a rebel against God in their own way.
Just doesn't seem fair that God sees everyone in the same way. I mean, some people are just worse than others.
And God will handle them all accordingly. But that's just the whole point, Nikki. On what basis will you stand before a perfect God and say that you've been good enough?
But I thought God is forgiving. With this perfect justice thing, you're saying that God can't forgive anyone.
God is forgiving, and more than anything else, God wants to forgive people so they can return to Him. But God's desire to forgive can't override His perfect justice. People have to pay a penalty for breaking God's laws. And the penalty is death.
So, what has to happen before he'll take us back?
Well, God has two options. Either he could let people try and pay their own penalties.
Which you already said they can't do.
Right. There's no way they'd be separated from him forever. God's other option is to take the penalty of death on himself.
How can he do that?
He's God. The Creator is always greater than the creation. And for the Creator to take on the penalty of death for himself, that satisfies perfect justice.
But if he's already perfect and holy, why would he want to do that?
Let's say, when Sarah is 20 years old, she falls in with a bad crowd and gets hooked on heroin.
Painting a really cheery picture there, Jesus.
Just stay with me. Now, while she's on drugs, she murders someone and is sentenced to be executed. Would you take her sentence if you could?
I'm sure I would.
Why?
Because I love her. And she'd have the rest of her life to get straightened out again and be happy.
Don't you think God loves you at least as much as you love Sarah?
Maybe. I really don't know.